Hello, everyone. I'm Sayeed Ahmed, a part-time faculty at the School of Security and Global Studies. The title of my presentation is The Persecution of Religious Minorities in Bangladesh. I'm joining with you from the town called Kumilla in Bangladesh. It's 60 miles away from the capital city, Dhaka. Currently, I'm here to do my fieldwork for this project, and I would like to thank American Public University System for providing funds to come here. Without this support, it would not be possible for me to do this research. Before presenting my paper, I would like to share one anecdotal story that actually motivated me to do this research. A few years back, during a visit to my friend's house in the USA, I met a Bangladeshi Hindu physics professor who had to remain anonymous for security reasons. The professor told me that he had left Bangladesh a long time ago to study abroad and has been unable to return home due to fear for his life. While he and his brother were away, a powerful local leader from the ruling party, Awami League, who was Muslim, seized their family home in the district town Kumilla, where I am currently right now. The leader compelled the professor's widowed mother to relocate to India and issued threats to the professor and his family if they ever returned. It could be an isolated incident, but in reality, thousands of the religious minorities in Bangladesh persecuted every year. So this actually, I thought that I should do some research on that and to understand exactly what is going on in the ground. So first, let's look at it. Who are the religious minorities in Bangladesh? Bangladesh is a Muslim majority country. 91% Muslims are Sunni Muslims here out of the total population of 165 million people. And Hindus are the largest minority. And my study mainly focuses on the Hindus. Besides Hindus, there are Christians, Buddhists, Ahmadiyya Jamaat, Shia, Baha'i, atheists, and various forms of animists. Bangladesh is not the exclusive country where minorities are facing persecution. Actually, religious minorities are at risk of persecution almost all over the world. They are persecuted by society. They're also persecuted by the state. For example, Ahmadiyya Jamaat in Bangladesh and Pakistan, they are highly persecuted. And we know the Sunnis, among the Muslim population, Sunnis are the 75 to 84%. And these Sunni populations in Iran, they face jail, deportations, and they do not enjoy equal rights like the Shias. And the same ways in Saudi Arabia, the Shia population, they do not enjoy the same freedom like the Sunni population. And Hindus in Bangladesh and in Pakistan, and the other hand, the Muslims in India face various forms of persecution. And we know that Christians in many countries face some form of persecution or intimidation. And the Jewish communities around the world, including those in the West, often face various forms of intolerance and intimidation. So no region in the world is free from some form of religious persecution. But the problem is more severe in South Asia and the Middle East. And the religious persecution is prevalent in Bangladesh, making it among the South Asian countries with high levels of religious persecution. So in my paper, I try to understand what is the meaning of religious persecution. The scholars of religious persecution, they are not on consensus that how they would define religious persecution. So I actually try to understand the meaning of religious persecution. And some scholars would argue that extreme form of religious persecution is meaning that when people of particular religion cannot exercise their religion without fear of retribution or discrimination. They called it extreme level of persecution. So basically, when people are targeted because of their religious faith or because of their affiliations in faith-based groups or organizations, say what we saw in Falun Gong in China. But my query is that, for example, there are some scholarly research about religious persecution in Bangladesh and lots of journalistic work about this. But none of the studies actually mention or the root causes of religious persecution. Usually these types of research and report and monographs, mainly they are discussing the consequences of persecution, what type of psychological, physical, or financial effects on the lives of minorities. So I would like to understand exactly what's the causes of this persecution. And I argue in my paper that although apparently it looking like a criminal activities, but these criminals actually motivated by some kind of political ideologies. And what are these political ideologies in Bangladesh? And what I understand that these political ideologies are Muslim nationalism and Islamism. Say, for example, some people they are committed they're committing some crimes. They might or might not belong to any of the Muslim nationalist or Islamist parties, but subconsciously in their mindset, they are carrying these types of mentality that the minority communities are the other, they are the enemies of the state and society. And these types of mindset, these two political ideologies played an important role to create and recreate among the in the society and nourish this type of ideology in the society. So at first, I try to look back at how these two ideologies actually emerged in the political culture in Bangladesh. So I reread the history and I found that these types of political ideologies rooted in the time of British colonial period when Indian nationalism emerged to encounter colonial rule. For the Muslim nationalists, from their points of view, that Indian nationalism, although apparently it looks like an inclusive nationalism, but for them that is actually in disguise Hindu nationalism, and they want to subjugate the various forms of subcultures in order to establish their cultural values, practices, and social norms, or in order to establish their hegemony. And at the same time, according to the Muslim nationalists, they wanted to secure the interests of the majority of the population who were Hindus in British India. So to counter Indian nationalism, the Muslim nationalism emerged and Muslim nationalist parties formed in 1906. And Indian nationalist project and Indian narratives, they also did this way. Let's put it kind of like they excluded all the non-Muslims Indian nationalist project. And they considered all non-Muslims, especially Hindus, they are the major enemies to advance their political agendas or political project. And Muslim nationalist culture, created the environment or created an ambience of developing a Islamism or Islamist fundamentalism in British India. So they supported each other And both Muslim nationalists and Islamists actually fought for separate state for the Muslim people. And on the basis of this movement, in 1947, the state of Pakistan was created, and the Bangladesh, current Bangladesh, was the part of Pakistan that time, which was called that time East Pakistan. But after the creation of Pakistan, the Bengali nationalist elites, they found they are extremely cornered in the political system. So to encounter Muslim nationalists and Islamism, they develop a counter political ideology, which is called Bengali nationalism or secular Bengali nationalism. On the basis of this nationalism, in 1971, the new state formed because there was a civil war in 1971, and the new state was created, and secularism became the basis of this state. As a result, Hindus and other non-Muslims, they became very optimistic that finally all their misery and sufferings will be gone, because in United Pakistan, they were extremely suppressed. So they thought that they can exercise the equal rights like the Muslim majorities in independent Bangladesh, because it is now a secular state. But unfortunately, within a very short period of time, Muslim nationalists and Muslim nationalism and Islamism came back to the political system or the political culture, and gradually Islamism became a very powerful ideology in the state and society. So in my paper, I try to evaluate how these religious induced ideologies continually cultivate a mindset of religious persecution among the masses. But basically, I would like to see the correlation between these political ideologies and religious persecution. As a result of these types of political ideology, the socio-cultural, economic, and political communalism, deeply entrenched communalism, emerged in Bangladesh. Communalism is kind of equivalent to racism in America, sort of, that instead of black and white, they are actually targeting Muslims versus non-Muslims. And this communalism, and as a result of this communalism, the minorities always felt insecure in Bangladesh. And as a result, what we saw that huge populations of Hindu minorities, they had to leave the country. They had to force to leave the country. And especially there was a special act, it's called the Enemy or Vested Property Act. This act, played an important role to actually these types of communal disharmony or persecution. And this is a very strange act. This act was enacted in 1965 during the Pakistan-India war. And according to this act gave the authority to the state to grab the land of the property of somebody whom the state declared as the enemy of the state. And almost all of the cases, the state declared the Hindus are the enemies of the state, and state grabbed their land. After Bangladesh gained independence in 1971, but in 1974, then Bangladeshi government renamed this act, and it's called the Vested Property Act in 1974. But still, they just simply changed the name, and using this act against the non-Muslim population to declare them as the enemy of the state, and they grabbed their property. And as a result, what we witnessed that severe loss of Hindu population. For example, from 20 in 1941, there are 28% population were Hindu, but in 1974, we saw that it reduced to 13.5%. And in 2022, it further reduced to 7.95%. And at the same time, besides this, there is some scholars called it silent ethnic cleansing, this type of silent ethnic cleansing going on, which forced 11.3 million Hindus to migrate to other countries from 1964 to 2013 period. So in my study, besides besides trying to understand the correlation between political ideologies and religious persecution, I've also tried to understand what are the psychological, physical, and financial impacts of Muslim nationalism and Islamism-induced attacks on religious minorities in Bangladesh. And to understand that, instead of simply relying on secondary sources, I actually came to Bangladesh. I came last year to understand what's going on there. So I talked with various people from minority backgrounds, and I mainly relying on unstructured and semi-structured interviews. And I visited their homes, temples, and I talked in other places. But when I started talking with them, initially they felt discomfort to share their experiences with me. But when I repeatedly reassured them that their name will not appear in the research, they feel a little bit relaxed and they shared their experiences. I talked with the Hindu people. I also went to the talk with the Baha'i population here. I talked with the Buddhist population. I visited temples and pagodas. I also went to Ahmadiyya Jamaat Mosque. And next few days, I am planning to talk with some Christians population and the Shia population. Almost all of them I talked, none of them are hopeful that the situation will change in near future. Only a few of them, those who are a little bit high up in the society, they had a different views. They, for example, professor or very high officials or very rich persons. I don't know what's in their mind, but at least they wanted to say that they are very hopeful the situation will be changed. Or one or two persons says they are fine. There is no what is called any persecution. I don't know why they actually responded this to me, but 99% of my interviews told me actually shared their detailed experience, whether they or their teeth and kin or the friends or family members, somehow they are affected. And I also talked with religious minority women, and they also shared their experiences that how they felt live in a Muslim majority state, and all the discriminations and harassment because of their religious identities they are facing here. They also shared their experiences. And one of the thing I would like to share, say for example, one or two persons told that they even had a tough time to rent a house because of the religious identity, because the Muslim people, they don't want to rent their houses to the people, those who are not Muslim. And I also got a chance to talk with the persons, those who supported this Muslim nationalist or Islamist views, or those who supported these types of kind of persecution, kind of, and try to understand their views. So finally, I would like to say that my initial understanding, what I thought after doing a considerable field work, it actually support my initial hypothesis, and it indicates a significant correlation between various forms of religious persecution and the ideologies of Islamism and Muslim nationalism. And I also found that these types of uh, violence causes not only physical harm, but also results in psychological and financial hardship for minority population. Thank you all. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ahmed. If anybody has questions, feel free to come off of mute or type them in the chat. I'll help relay them. I have a question as folks may be typing or thinking for you. Where do you see, I think in many ways it's apparent the impact of this research, but I'd like to hear from you what you think what your next steps are in terms of this project. So you're doing field work right now.
So I will return to the US on the July the 3rd. And in between what I mentioned that I will talk with the Christians population and the Shias population. 1% population is the Shia and 0.7% population are Christians. I would like to understand their views, how they felt and all that. And after coming back to the US, my plan is to, organized all that data and write an article for the peer-reviewed journal. And this is my goal. And I'm also going to present this paper at University of California, Berkeley conference. It will be held in November this year. And this is my plan, to present this in an academic conference and to publish it in an academic journal.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Jim, I see your hand raised.
Yes, I think I can lower it now. I think. There we go. No, just a comment and then a question. You know, as many issues as we have in this country, it makes me feel very fortunate to live in the United States when I hear these things that are very disturbing. But my question is that the people that you spoke to, what was it that gave them a feeling that things were going to get better?
Yeah, it is the very difficult questions because this problem's going on since 1947 or before that time. But what I mentioned that none of the people, 99% of them said they do not see any hope in near future, whether the ruling party or the other party come to power. And you know, there is not exactly proper democracy in the country. There's election fraud, everything. One party remaining in power last how many years? 16 years. So, yeah, and there is virtually no opposition. Even those who are opposition, they are more radicalized in terms of more leaning towards Muslim nationalists and Islamists. So some minorities, they are better than the others. Whether there's democracy or not, at least they are on the paper. They try to say we are secular. No, not in practice. And the constitution also not a secular constitution. There are lots of Islamist elements in the constitution. What I'm going to mention in my paper, because of the time constraints, I did not mention all of that. So none of them feel that, okay, it will be like a Western level secular state in near future, or not in their lifetime, not even their grandson lifetime. They responded this way. So this is the scenario right there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Except what I mentioned one more time, that one or two people, there's a very high up. I don't know whether because of the social position, their affiliation with the government, because they're high officials, they responded different. They said, no, we don't face anything. It's okay, everything fine like that. But yeah, just 1% population responded like.
Hi, can I ask a question? This is Arnold Nikogosian.
Hi, Arnold. Yes.
Oh, very nice research. Thank you. I used to live in Iran for a long time. During the Shah and before the Islamic Revolution. And Iran was a very moderate Islamic country, and it's very tolerant to all the religions, all the minorities and different religions which are living there. How would you compare Bangladesh? I have two questions. How would you compare Bangladesh to Indonesia? I will not ask you to compare it to Saudi Arabia. I know what the answer is. But not sure about Indonesia, which is one of the largest, I believe, Sunni country. And how would you, what was your sample size and the demographic? You don't have to answer all those. I already put my question. You can answer later on about your experimental design, epidemiological design. Thank you. Good research.
Thank you so much. And in comparison to current Iran and Saudi Arabia, if you compare with these two countries, Bangladesh is moderate, because comparison to them, especially Iran and Saudi Arabia, because at least it's not that, openly state-sponsored persecution. Although state officials helping, but it's not like Iran or Saudi Arabia, much better than them. But if you compare with, say, for example, how would I like to say Great Britain is a post like that. So it's a matter of comparison where Bangladesh is there. And I'm not sure about how I should compare with Indonesia and Bangladesh. I really need to look at that. Seems to me in Indonesia is a little bit moderate than Bangladesh, but I'm not 100% positive. I need to recheck what's going on in Indonesia. My sample size is not too big. Because it's the second time I'm visiting Bangladesh. So far, I talked with roughly 85 or 88 people. It's a very small sample size because it's very difficult to actually, within time frame and location and to manage that. And lots of people I found that has a hesitation to talk. So this is another problem, because they are fearful if they talk and something, it will harm them. This I get the sense. So somebody has to reassure them, because I actually accompanied local minority population, accompanied me. They have to reassure continuously that no, this scholar came from the USA and he is not like a Muslim nationalist or Islamist. So you can speak freely. So then I can understand the sense that how much they are fearful and all that. So it's the limitations of my research too. I would like to mention this because the sample is not too big, and yeah, this is the situation. Thank you for the question.
One last question, if I may. In Iran, it used to be the rule that, unwritten rule actually, that people who were not Muslim or Shia Muslims cannot hold a government position, though currently they accept for the Iranian parliament some minorities. What is the situation in Bangladesh?
It's a very good question, because there is no regional law like that in Bangladesh, and there is small minority population in the parliament. They're not representing the percentage of population, but small minorities, quote unquote, elected by the blessings of the ruling party, because if you don't have the blessings from the ruling party, you cannot elect. But I asked these questions to some of the minority officials. Say, for example, yes, minority population can hold various positions, but I asked them, do you believe, not officially, the common people, that the minority population, can you be elected as a prime minister or the president or the police chief or the military chief or chief justice? Although in constitution there is no bar, but in reality, all of them said no, it's not possible. And I talked to one of the minority police officer, very high rank, and he said no, despite I have a qualification, I cannot be a police chief in my country. I understand this reality. But if you see the paper, all are equal. But in the last 52 years of Bangladesh history, none of the minority population actually got this type of position. This is the reality.
Thank you so much. I've got excellent questions in the chat here, and I think we can just take one or 2 minutes more to address one. Of course, my chat froze. From, let's see, Tim. In consideration for your own safety in terms of doing this research, I think we all, you've certainly talked about how high the stakes are for people who, occupy the religious minorities. So That's where the question came from. Any considerations for your own risk in doing this field research?
Yeah, it's a good question. And last time, Jenny Douglas also asked me these questions when I was going to Bangladesh. Usually, everybody actually told me that you don't need to openly tell everybody here and there that you came here to do this type of research. Just talk with the minority population. In general, I don't feel any safety concern, but at the same time, I should not be feel okay. I am fine. So it's in between. I little bit have to be cautious, but not that I'm feeling extremely fearful or my life in danger. It's not like this scenario. But at the same time, I'm not going to tell each and everybody, oh, I'm here to do this as a research. Okay. Yeah, so situation is something like that. It's better than Iran, better than Saudi Arabia, but worse than any Western countries. Let's put it this way. So this is it's in between, in the middle ground. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And for everyone who has questions that we weren't able to get to in time, I will send them to Dr. Ahmed and facilitate getting those responses. I want to be considerate of you, Dr. Ahmed, because it's so late as well. You're probably
Thank you so much.
It's done
nice to see
for the evening. So thank you so very much about this very important research. I really look forward to hearing about your presentation at UC Berkeley later on in the year as well.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day, guys.
Thank you.